So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jared.
I'm Brandon.
And we've had two shows this week in WWE with two brand new champions. We'll talk that and so much more as the Heel to the Face podcast starts right now.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad luck seems to be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
The intro there, Big E saying celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester. We include that in because we are a localized show, but I guess if you are a big fan of Big E, you could indeed be celebrating with him as he became the new WWE Champion this past week on Monday Night Raw, as this is the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm joined with Brandon. My name is Jared, and most importantly, follow the show at Heel to the Face on Twitter, where we upload all the latest episodes every single week. And we get back to Big E, and I was surprised. The reason I was surprised is because Bobby Lashley did something we don't normally see, and that's you take the championship into WrestleMania, and he defended it. He left with the championship. So you have to think, well, then SummerSlam, he's going to lose it. And he took it against Goldberg, a man who always beats every champion for his own personal ego, and he took the belt into SummerSlam in front of 50,000 people, and he left with it. So who is going to beat this guy? Is it going to just finally be Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley meeting for a clash of the belts? Who knows? It's going to be somebody we don't see coming. The Rock, Brock Lesnar. And then on a Monday Night Raw, it was Big E cashing in Money in the Bank.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I really enjoyed it. You know what? I got to tell you, I think Big E, it's been long overdue. I think he's been underutilized by WWE, unlike many other superstars for a while now, as we see. But I'm so glad that Big E is finally getting his opportunity. I've always been a Kofi guy, but I always respect Big E. I think Big E, he's worked his tail off, and by all reports and everything that I've seen on social media, he is well loved by so many wrestlers in the business. It's one of those moments, and I don't remember exactly what Bray Wyatt said on Twitter, but it was like, that's the kind of moment where everybody's in gorilla waiting to congratulate him. That's how well respected he is. As a colleague, a worker, just he has the total package. It's just good to see WWE shaking things up, and I do like the fact that they made Bobby look like he got hurt, so it doesn't make Bobby look any worse, I don't think. So I'm happy for Bobby, and I'm happy. Well, I'm happy for Big E. I mean, I'm glad the way Bobby did lose the belt. I think it doesn't it's not a detriment to his character at all.
It's a little confusing, I guess, because wrestling fans complain about everything and anything. And here we go, Big E, a member of the New Day, a.k.a. not Kenny Omega, and not the WWE's Daniel Bryan, not CM Punk, not anything close to that, as if the New Day, has shown us in the past. A character, a WWE cartoon character, could, if they had a morning cartoon show, a TVG show, Big E could be a character. And yet here you have the 18 to 35 demographic going, yes, I love it. What's that about?
Because people just respect his grind, his hustle. Like, he's worked his way up. He's done it the right way. He's just, by all accounts, I've never met Big E. I haven't had a chance to meet Big E, but by all accounts, by people in the know, the Big E is one of the most approachable people. He's just a good dude, and he just works his ass off. And
they didn't turn him heel to do it. A lot of people thought that if he ever became champion, and which I thought as well, that it'd have to be turn heel, or at least get some sort of harder edge to him.
They did it right. They did it. They nailed this one. WWE actually nailed this one. And I don't give WWE creative a lot of credit a lot of the time, but I think they got this one right. The only thing I would have done differently is I wouldn't have announced it. Like, oh, hey, Big E's going to, don't allow him to go on Twitter.
He
and
announced
say, hey,
on Twitter earlier in the afternoon before Monday Night Raw, in which it worked because I tuned in, though. It worked. I tuned in. I watched Monday Night Raw. I didn't tune into all Monday Night Raw. I tuned in when the championship match was. And if there wasn't a championship match and then there wasn't Big E, the two things I would say, I probably might not. I would have watched Raw on delay like anybody else.
Well, what you could have done is WWE could have branded it like, we got Randy Orton and Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. Make sure to tune in. And then that's going to be key to be like, okay, there's a title match. We have a Money in the Bank briefcase holder. That would still sprinkle enough interest to say, okay, maybe I should watch tonight because Big E is going to cash in, instead of being like, oh, hey, I'm gonna hand in the briefcase tonight. That's the only nitpickiness, but overall, I think WWE did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I thought that something would happen as normally does with such an announcement. I thought, okay, he's not going to cash in. Something's going to stop him from cashing in. It's, it's some sort of the equivalent of clickbait to get us to watch.
Sure.
But he then indeed cashed in. He then indeed won the match.
Good pop.
And became the champion. Now, I will say personally, I am not a fan of it, outside of tag teams maybe, of the New Day singles competitors. I do like Big E as champion more than I like Kofi as champion. I was not a fan of Kofi Mania.
See, I disagree. I think Kofi's. I like Kofi better. I always have. I think Kofi gets a lot of disrespect in my opinion.
My
he's
thing is,
underrated.
and here's my issue with Kofi Mania. If we want to talk about that for a second. Everybody always said during Kofi Mania that finally Kofi became champion, as if he had been fighting for the championship or had been championship material all along. It's not like over here, like,
wait, you don't think he's been championship material all along? I've always thought
he won his first championship match that he ever had. And the only time that he was ever really even considered to be for the championship, these elimination chambers are kind of blown up, so they have a lot of people in it sometimes who aren't championship caliber. So the only time that he's ever been in a number one contenders match or anything that that this guy's going to fight for the championship down the line has been in a few, I think, elimination chambers in which he was like the first eliminated and like a joke contender. So if Kofi had really been this championship contender, world championship contender all along, and, he'd been fighting for the championship, he'd been the last two left in the Royal Rumble, and he'd been having main event matches that have stolen the show, a WrestleMania, I'll remember Undertaker and Shawn Michaels for the belt, but Kofi and Daniel Bryan in that ladder match, a number one contender match, I mean, that's the match. That never happened. That never happened.
But here's the thing. That's not Kofi's fault that WWE dropped the ball with him for so many years. Kofi Kingston, anybody that knows wrestling and watches wrestling has always respect Kofi's hustle. The guy's good in the ring. He does what you need in the ring. He's entertaining. He has a great moveset. He's been underutilized for so long, and that's why I was happy for Kofi.
And if they wanted to utilize him, I guess, before that, then I can understand.
Well, you know how WWE is. They are all about body guys. You got to have this physique, which I'm surprised that they didn't go after guys that are in AEW like Wardlow and Brian Cage for Pete's sake, because that's what WWE is. They're all about the body guys. They want to have those guys that, oh my God, they got an 8-pack and they're like, their arms are, like pythons as
so before Kofi became champion, let's say before that big elimination chamber come out, you put him up there with the Seth Rollins,
yes,
the Roman Reigns,
yeah,
you put him up there in that caliber of, even because a lot of those guys, he had not won the champion. Obviously, Seth Rollins won the belt at WrestleMania 31. He's
just as good as Seth Rollins. I don't care what anybody says. He is just as good as Seth Rollins, if not better.
Yeah, Big E. Now, Big E, to keep things current, I will say that he is somebody who is more of somebody that you could say he finally won the belt, because he's had, I guess, he's bigger. He's a heavyweight. Two, he won the Money in the Bank, so he's been kind of walking around for a couple months now as the number one contender.
He's a body guy. That's what WWE wants. They want a body guy. Kofi's had to overcome that because everybody knows that there's certain wrestlers that WWE is like, we're not going to really put a title on them. He had to fight, scratch, and claw to get to the top. So for me, the grind for Kofi is a better grind than Big E. Nothing against Big E. I respect the hustle, but he had a quicker trajectory than Kofi. And here's the thing.
I think he had you think Big E had a quicker trajectory?
I do. I really do.
Because Big E was like,
Kofi went years and years. He went like a whole decade.
Well, that's true, though. But I guess the thing is, it's like the Fandangos of the world. And I'm not discounting Fandango. And look how long he was in WWE. And outside his immediacy against Chris Jericho, like in his very first match, after that, no one was ever like, when's Fandango going to be the number one contender? When's Fandango going to win the Royal Rumble?
But Kofi's been one of those guys that wrestling fans have adored for his work ethic and what he does in the ring. And he's just an entertaining guy. So for me, like I love, I'm happy for Big E, but I would say Kofi had to grind
on a
out.
non-body guy situation. I will say, and I know he got the belt because of the Eddie Guerrero situation, but Rey Mysterio was a not body guy, but somebody whom had, I guess, the work, and not just the work ethic, but I guess the reputation in which when he became heavyweight champion, people weren't too surprised in the wrestling world.
The thing. He's the GOAT of the lucha style. That's, I mean, I don't think that's
And
a debate.
he's never been a body guy, but you still knew going through history that he had a reputation of, if he never became champion, he was still like a main event material guy. I guess I never looked at when Kofi Kingston wasn't a champion, and we've seen it since Kofi Kingston has been the champion. It has not been Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston in a 30-minute Iron Man match at WrestleMania,
which could happen because those guys could go all day long. And here's the thing. Here's how I'll end that part with. So Adam Cole, for example, we talked about it last week. They wanted to make him a manager. WWE didn't see anything in the ring. So that's all you need to know about how Kofi has overcome things over time, because the door has been closed on him proverbially. That's the thing. The door has been shut in his face, and he's overcome it. He's taken, he made the New Day gimmick with the with Woods and Big E what it is, because let's be honest, at first nobody cared for him. Nobody I remember when we were doing the podcast years ago when New Day was still kind of new, we were like, yeah, this isn't going to last. And guess what? It's lasted, and it's still going in 2021. If you would have asked on that first episode we did over 4 years ago if the New Day would be here today, I probably would have said absolutely not.
So speaking of, I guess, the New Day and what they bring to the table in their colorfulness and their brightness, that takes us to Tuesday night. NXT 2.0 and the brightness and the colorfulness that now is from what was once the hard grind, dark, heavy metal brand, the one that had Poppy and New Year's Day and the Rhea Ripley's running around. The pierced ears, the covered in tattoos, the Tommaso Ciampa looking people who are still there, but overall the brand had that. It was the underground, breath of fresh air for the adult wrestling fan, if you will. And well, I put it out there on Twitter, and I still agree. The logo itself, listen, I get a lot of people didn't like the logo.
I like the logo.
I didn't have too much to say about it.
What's wrong with the logo? What is wrong with the logo? The logo, I think, is fine. I don't know.
Well,
wrestling fans complain about everything. That's the problem.
I didn't have one to say for or against the logo.
It's not the greatest logo of all time. I'm not saying that, but it's not a terrible logo.
What do you
it's not
think
a pile
of the
crap.
whole rebrand on Tuesday night in general?
I thought it was a good show. I enjoyed it. I was pleasantly surprised. I went into NXT 2.0 thinking, okay, this is gonna be crap, because they let guys like Bronson Reed out the door, Mercedes Martinez out the door. Mm-hmm. But you saw somebody in the Breakker family, Braun Breaker, having a great day. So that was a
We can't mention that. That is one thing we cannot mention. That he's a part of anybody's family. That is a negative that the WWE has been telling the commentators, that you can't mention that. That's Rick Steiner's son.
Oh, what?
Got to keep that to ourselves.
Oh, but whatever. And you know what? Here's the thing. He's part of the Breakker family, so we in the Breakker family, we appreciate all the great work. And he upset LA Knight to open up the show. And at the end of the show, had a little stare down and a little handshake and a little respect thing between him and the new. You mentioned his name, the new NXT champion, Tommaso Ciampa.
Joins the two-time club, and that's a short list.
Yes.
That's, I think, Samoa Joe, Finn Balor, Karrion Kross, and him, and Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah,
and Shinsuke.
I got to tell you, I was surprised. I like that kid Vaughn as well. He kind of, I forget his last name.
Yeah, who joined the championship match out of nowhere.
He looked good. Vaughn looked good. I was pleasantly surprised with some of these new faces that I haven't seen before. Some of these guys look pretty good. I honestly, going into that main event match for the NXT title, I thought Pete Dunne was going to win. That was just who I thought was going to win.
Now, here's the thing, though, and I'll go back to the overall design of NXT, because, again, the competitors don't really match the design too well. I don't know if when you were a kid, you spent too much time watching this stuff, but to me, it looked like the set of a 90s daytime talk show. I thought I was watching Ricky Lake. Thought I was watching Donahue, and the reason is I get the way that they just had the crowd set up. And if you notice the barricades, or the lack thereof barricade, that was just like a little glass panel that was like at the feet of the people that were sitting in the elevated first row. So the first row is like elevated a little bit, so they're not on the floor like they were in the past.
Yep.
And then there was like no barricade. It was just like at the feet. So if you went outside of the ring and you were to wrestle, it would be like at your knees. There was nothing that was like between you and the fans, and normally it'd be like at your chest or, at your shoulders. That would be the barricade, but none of that. the bright colors and just the whole brightness had it lit up so you could see the ceiling, you could see the rafters, you could see the pipes, you could see all that stuff. So they went and did the opposite of what they had before, where everything was kind of darkened and shrunken in. Now it looks like a gymnasium again. But the way they had the fans sitting, because I mean they had seats at NXT that looked similar to an arena before when they were in the Performance Center. The way that they set it up, though, looks, you can even say like WCW Saturday Night back in the day.
Sure.
Maybe a little like Impact, because that's also in a studio, but it looked very studio-ish. It looked very like I'm there to watch Ricky Lake.
You know what? I wasn't that. I actually didn't mind the set. I actually was okay with the set. It's different. I think it takes it back to the WCW days. I'm okay with it. I mean, for what it is, they're rebranding everything, so they're just redoing the whole NXT brand. So to me,
what do you make of the
2.0?
You think that how long do you want to have them saying 2.0 before that? We get it that it's a new and we get it. You can use it right away.
They're probably gonna do it. They're probably gonna do it for at least 6 months.
Yeah, I could give up the whole 2.0 thing. It's the same way.
I'm okay with it for now. I mean, they're emphasizing. I get it.
And I would say that they would probably get rid of it after a while, but now that they still call events takeovers after it's been, 7 years, they've been calling these things takeovers.
So is it going to be takeovers going forward? Is that the...
And that's, I do not know if that's takeovers.
I haven't heard one way or the other, so...
Yeah, I mean, I don't, and if it's takeovers, I imagine they could still keep the name, but it just seemed kind of strange that takeover was like the name of the original pay-per-view. It would literally be the same as if WWE, I think if they were to start nowadays and they would be brand new, the first pay-per-view would essentially be WrestleMania. Then they would have made WrestleMania Backlash, then WrestleMania SummerSlam, then WrestleMania Survivor. And it would, because that's what TakeOver is.
Yeah,
TakeOver was the name of the pay-per-view. It was like TakeOver or In Your House or No Way Out or No Mercy. And then it became like TakeOver with something with TakeOver. Or how about just instead of calling it St. Valentine's Day Massacre Takeover, why don't you just call it St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Why don't you just call it,
True.
What they did, what I mean? Because they would like add, like Takeover Brooklyn. Why not just NXT Brooklyn?
Do something, make it different.
So this 2.0 thing, I wonder how long it's going to be before they drop it. Maybe we got to wait till 3.0.
I give it 6 months. That's what I'm thinking. I give it 6 months, and then I think they're going to get rid of it. I think it's just to establish that it's a whole new deal. That's all they're doing it for.
It just seems very strange overall, just for the fact that you are adding the color scheme and NXT, which is, again, always been the more hardened, underground,
well, let me ask you
darker
this.
product.
How did you like it, though? I know you heard me.
It was kind of different. I mean, I think
it.
the championship match in my eyes went way too short for a championship match. That
I agree.
Is essentially going to, for sure, crown a champion. Because, again, that's the thing that stinks is you watch these takeovers and they have some of the best championship matches. And here we go, essentially getting a pay-per-view caliber main event
on TV,
where the champion is going to be brand new. So you're like, this is like a takeover main event here. And it was not even the main event. We got main evented by the wedding instead of Dexter Lumis.
Which he said 2 words. That was, we've never heard Dexter talk, so that was the big story. I was like, he talked.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting him to talk, because like when they were doing the vows, he just kind of goes like this, sticks his thumb up, and then like the ordained minister went to sleep, and then
that did happen.
And then Beth Phoenix came out, and she's like, I'm ordained. And then it was, hey, you know what? It was actually, for what it was actually pretty entertaining, because I think the most entertaining part of that was seeing Dexter Lumis say words. That to me, I thought, I think it's great that they're going to still keep him in character, but just to hear him say 2 words, I was like, yeah, that's cool.
Do you think that the show should have ended with the wedding or the main event, the championship?
Should have been the championship.
Why do you think? Because I'm still trying to figure out what the wedding brought to the table. I
think the placement was odd. That's the only. I
was expecting. Oh yeah, I was waiting for some big debut or something of that nature.
Maybe it's just because, which this probably sounds bad, but maybe they just didn't want to take everything down.
Because they still went off with the champion and that shows you that they weren't so much 100% sure on that wedding.
Sure.
Because it still went off the air with Tommaso Ciampa the championship and Breakker.
I think, this might be an underrated aspect of why they didn't, put that wedding before. Maybe they just didn't want to take down the set, do the set right on live TV. That's the only thing I can think of, because
sounds like a WWE thing to me.
I know that's what I mean though. It's odd, but that's all I can think of, because they had to make a whole new, make a set for the whole thing. So, it was fine. Overall, I mean, I was reading stuff online. I mean, overall, people gave it like a solid B for the grade. So I think people are pleasantly surprised.
The go-home episode this week, I guess you could say, because next week's a Dynamite nevertheless, but the go-home episode for Dynamite's next week, Grand Slam from Arthur Ashe Stadium, fresh off the U.S. Open just being there. I wonder if that was kind of like placed, that they wanted to keep that kind of fresh in people's minds for the event next week. But Daniel Bryan, Kenny Omega next week, Malachi Black, Cody Rhodes. I was going to say Corey Rhodes. Cody Rhodes.
Yep.
Squaring off as well as many others for this big sold-out 20,000 seats. I think they're maybe less than that expecting at Arthur Ashe Stadium. I'm not sure the capacity. It's probably one of their biggest venues that they've held outside the United Center. Are you looking forward to that next week? Is that appointment viewing? Are you going to treat that like a Dynamite, just like any other Dynamite? Or is this more like a pay-per-view?
I mean, it's definitely for me. I think AEW across the board these days have been appointment television. I mean, I actually go out of my way to watch AEW Dynamite, and I do. I will say I watch Rampage the next day, so I don't catch spoilers. But I definitely do watch Dynamite live. It's appointment TV. So having everything coming up and these matches that are coming up, I'm definitely gonna be watching live.
Now, we were talking off air the past week about an event that is happening, I guess, locally in about 2 weeks. AEW, the week after the Grand Slam event, is going to be in Rochester, New York. Finally, after a very, very long time. I mean,
only about
imagine
a year
the
and a
people
half.
I haven't held on the tickets this whole time, but imagine the people who bought tickets like the day they went on sale. They've been holding on to them for like 2
years.
Yeah. Before this event is finally happening.
Rescheduled after a year and a half, hey.
After rescheduled many times from March to June to November to now, where are we?
What, September?
So it went from March to June to November to June to September. It was rescheduled a few times. That's the point of the story. But we're here. We're going to make it. And some rumors are that a certain other person could be making his return at this AEW Dynamite the week after the Grand Slam.
Wait, who? Who could that be?
But there's also rumors that he could go somewhere else. So I will ask you
not
this.
WWE.
Well, not WWE, no. So I'm going to ask you this question, and I've asked you this question before. You know this question once you've heard it. Does Bray Wyatt, just like I've asked about a bunch of other people, showing up in Impact Wrestling make you watch Impact Wrestling anymore?
Ooh, that is a good. I was not expecting that question, folks. I'll watch it just to see, and that's it. It's just like
because there are the rumors that they're having Bound for Glory in Las Vegas, and if he doesn't show up on the September 29th show in Rochester, then maybe he could show up on October 23rd in Impact at Bound for Glory. Obviously, AEW is the more namesake, but, I mean, there has been some decent names that have shown up in Impact Wrestling.
But who watches Impact? Nobody watches Impact. I mean, here's the thing. Anytime there's a surprise, I'll watch just to see what it looks like, and then I'm done. It's not like that. That's my exposure to Impact these days. AEW and WWE are not always appointment television, but I will go back and go out of my way to watch.
You know, and Bound for Glory is doing the whole AEW New Japan tie-in and all that good stuff, and they've been obviously working together for many months now. So one way that you could put Bray Wyatt in Impact Wrestling without completely killing him and making him interesting to those who are AEW fans and those who are going to watch is if he became the Impact World Champion and then kind of did crossovers where you got the Kenny Omega, did the feuds where he's appointment television as champion. I mean, if you put him in there and he's just a mid-card guy, then yeah, you're probably not going to get people to stick around with that. But if you put him in there as champion and then you do a lot of crossovers, with Kenny Omega and he shows up on AEW TV every so often, similar to what we've had in the past with Kenny Omega showing up on Impact and vice versa, then, I mean, that's one way that they could utilize him really well in Impact and not essentially waste him. They get their money's worth. Time will tell, I guess, if he shows up.
I think he's going to AEW in Rochester. That's just me. I think how close he was to Brody, to me, it makes so much sense. It would be so cool, especially in Brody's hometown. I think that's what's going to happen. I think Bray is going to go to AEW. I think he's going to be in Rochester and it's going to be a nice tribute, and it's going to be a pretty cool situation. That's all I'll say.
So we'll finish this week's show off talking about the Dark Side of the Ring coming back for another season this week. I am excited. And one thing I brought up a few weeks ago about the XPW return and it making its return in Rochester, New York. And I was trying to explain XPW to some of those who may not be super familiar with it. And one way I said is that they could have a Dark Side of the Ring, XPW and Rob Black and everything that went along with it. Well, on this season of Dark Side of the Ring, we got XPW, Rob Black, and XPW.
Okay, I got to stop you there really quick. Did you already know this, or was that just
I did not already know this. I just
guess?
knew that the way that I just explained XPW to you and those who didn't know, that it was something that easily could be made a Dark Side of the Ring.
This guy knows.
The first episode is the plane ride from hell, but in October, late October, is scheduled for this XPW Rob Black show.
So what's the first episode of Dark Side? What's
the plane ride from hell?
Oh,
that is the episode.
That's gonna be fun.
So, and I'm very curious with this XPW episode coming about a week before their rebirth, if that's going to give it some sort of steam, because clearly that they are going to be talking about in the episode, because they're probably going to interview Rob Black, and they're going to maybe interview some people who are involved, and it's going to have that underlining current of that they're coming back. You know what I mean? Like similar to, I guess if you watch, any of the Undertaker documentaries, they start out with the current, and then they flash back to the past. It's like anything. If you watch these, I watched recently, I think it was like The Malice of the Palace on Netflix.
I saw that too.
And they show current day Detroit and current, the players currently.
Yeah,
and then they kind of allude to what we're about. So I feel like this Dark Side of the Ring could be like, my name's Rob Black, and it could show them like setting things up and getting ready for the new show and making phone calls to people and being like, hey, do you want to join XPW? Do you want to join the new XPW? And the talent on the other end being like, what's the new XPW? Star swipe, do a little bit, and boom, there's the old X. That's what we're talking about, that kind of thing.
I'm definitely, I just can't believe you hit the nail on the head just a couple weeks ago. You're like, man, that'd be kind of cool if they did that. And
I just knew that it was worthy of an of a Dark Side of the Ring because of, pretty much everything I explained.
So
that
how many episodes do we know? Do we know any season, or how many episodes are this season?
I don't remember offhand, but I know it goes into, I think, early November. So every single week. So I think 6 to 8 episodes offhand.
Cool.
So
that's going to be some good TV.
I'm going to watch it probably this weekend. Going to watch episode number 1, and we'll obviously have way more to talk about next week from episode number 1 of Dark Side of the Ring, and so much more as we'll be a week away from Extreme Rules.
Yes.
And some of those matches as well. For Brandon, myself, Jared, this has been another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast.